with Spirit of Matter. I thought about calling this episode When Elections Don't Work. But to be more accurate, it's actually what in your life is eclipse related. And what does it mean, eclipse related? So, eclipse related is where life has other plans. Okay, you make plans and life happens. This is where we have those actually every year in different areas of our lives and to different intensities. Okay, so just for the beginning of this episode, this is a Mercury day still with a Mars hour. I think I did a video in the morning with the same, with pretty much the same Mercury Mars. And the ascendant is ruled by Mercury, 15 degrees Gemini, and Mercury in the 8th house in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, which is in the 10th house in Pisces, and the Saturn also ruling the midheaven in 27 degrees of Aquarius. The moon is on the anaretic degree of Sagittarius, and Jupiter in the 12th house, retrograding Taurus, ruled by Venus, which is in 10 degrees Scorpio. Sun is 21 degrees Sag. So, while the Sun is applying to square Neptune, and I've done a video on the entire synodic cycle of the Sun and Neptune for 2024 and 2025, you can watch it in my channel. The Moon is releasing from that square, and I want to talk about the eclipse cycle that we have for 2024. I'm not going to go through the eclipses themselves, but basically where in your life this year you're likely to make plans and then life will have other plans. So one such one such place can be where Aries and Libra sit in your natal chart. Okay, where is the Aries Libra in your natal chart? Because the eclipses are going to be mainly on Aries and Libra. I think we may have one in Pisces next year already. But this year, Aries and Libra. So you want to ask yourself, where is Aries and where is Libra in my chart? Now, for those of you who are beginners, basically, I know you go by usually sun sign, or maybe you've heard about ascendant. Basically, we all have all the signs in our chart and we all have all the planets. So what you need to ask yourself is, what do I have in Aries? What do I have in Libra? What planets? And where are the rulers? So the ruler for Aries is Mars. So where is Mars in your chart? For example, right now, Mars is in Sagittarius in the 7th house. So if this chart was a person, I would have said that the topics around life goals, hobbies, agendas or activism, if you're involved in any, kind of like the wider colleagues where you go to like a networking event or a conference. Okay, some fated stuff or community, some fated stuff can happen there, where you might have a sudden conference, or a conference maybe planned and then cancelled, or something else might happen there, or delayed to a time where an eclipse is taking place, or into the shade of eclipses, where the 5th house would be like children, projects that are creative projects, hobbies, fun. If you're dealing with, your risk taking, so healthy and unhealthy risk taking in your life. And then for Mars, that would be the 7th house, so your relational axis is where you might have pivotal events, so to speak. And Venus is in Scorpio, which is in the 6th house, and that pertains to work, labor, or maybe even bringing in a baby, okay, or pets or something like that. So that's just one example. And I'm going to go over the ascendants. And here is basically, well, it's for the ascendants, okay? It's for the ascendants, but also for whether you have Mars or Venus in the sign that I said. So let's say if we begin with Gemini, as we begin, yes. So it would be Gemini ascendant, but it might affect you as well if you have like Mars or Venus in Gemini natally. Okay, so for Gemini ascendants, again, Aries Libra is the 11th and 5th house. Okay, additional houses that will be affected would be where is Venus and where is Mars. So, like I said, any conference that you might need to go to or be scheduled to go to, any networking events, any social agendas, okay, you might be even in activism. If you are currently an activist, the way you do your activism might change, or some new topic is going to arise. If you weren't this type of activist person, you might begin to be, although the cycle of eclipses has already begun, so you're already seeing that partially in your life. And that applies also to your allies. You might have new allies, you might have older allies, or severing ties with people in the community. If you have a social platform, if you're more of a public figure, then you will have pivotal events there as well. For the 5th house, which is Libra, so for Libra, that, and this is still Gemini ascendant, okay, that pertains to your 5th house. So there is Ketu. So Ketu is usually, it's usually about letting go of something, but we cannot outrule that you, let's say, maybe had problems with fertility, so you're letting go of these problems and having a baby. Okay, it's not impossible, especially when Mars or Venus can go over Libra and Scorpio, as they have been doing actually recently. So maybe that's the case for you. But it is also a creative project. You might have a new hobby, or you're letting go of a hobby, an addiction, or a certain type of risk that you have taken. This is also the house of romance while you're in the dating phase. Okay, so you're not like committed, like 7th house, but it's more when you're just dating or having a romance. And you might be letting go of a certain affair, or even a certain type of lovers, or even a certain way of dating. Okay, remember in COVID, where everybody were at their homes and there was a lockdown, and non-monogamous couples especially experienced this, where they had to astral project, and everybody began to talk about astral projection in order to just like talk with their partners, not even like even beside like sexual relationships or intimacy, like to talk with their partners in presence. They would astrally project, they would dream together, and so that was a whole new way of doing relations back in COVID, when Rahu was in Gemini, actually. So yeah, ascendant Cancer. So for your ascendant Cancer, Aries and Libra is your 10th and 4th house. And you, of course, need to see where is Mars and where is Venus. Okay, natally and in transit, because these things tend to kind of like blend in. So for your 10th house, 10th house is your career, it is your public image. So you're going to have certain fated events to do with how you look in the world, but also what you bring to the world. If you have, let's say, also midheaven there, then it may be that through your career you have a sort of a legacy, and there are going to be some pivotal events around your career environment as well as your public image. You can get a sudden promotion, you can venture into a sudden project. If you've been trying to launch something that has been waiting forever. It can be the case that this is a eclipse related thing. So if you've been trying, I don't know, to drop what is Aries like? Aries Mars, maybe have a coaching course or something that is active, or how to do something, then stuff like that, or you teach them, you launch a new product or something like that. Then if you've been seeing like weird delays or weird things happening around this, or that doesn't work, with you it would be probably something doesn't work, more than like delays the Saturn way. Then it's likely that that things will come about, that you'll have to release it around an eclipse. And don't worry about it. This is fated, okay? Like there's nothing to worry about. If this is eclipse related, this is eclipse related. Um, so those pivotal events. And for your fourth house. So Ketu in your fourth house means you're letting go of something. Now this is interesting because if it is Ketu in the fourth house, it means it's difficult for you to let go of something. It can be something like having to move a house, or it simply means that you are more in your career phase than in your home. And depending on your chart, you might be spending less time at home and more time at work, whether it's because you got a promotion, or because you're launching something, or doing something entrepreneurial. And that is also quite fated. In kind of like extreme cases, you would genuinely be relocating, um, but you won't have too much time to tend to the house. Okay, what you will get from the house is perhaps the wisdom of your ancestors, or enjoy some family gatherings. Hopefully for you it's not like the death of a parent or something like that. You have to be more significations for that. Um, but it definitely means you'll be spending more time in the public sphere. But not only that, it means that what you will be doing in the public sphere is eclipse related. So your public image, you might have fated changes to your image, okay? And however much you try to control the situation, if you really have like a midheaven, or even Mars there, or the ruler of the ascendant there, then you're gonna just have to deal with that. And normally it's basically about bringing something new into your life, um, and creating a new image. Okay, but because it is eclipse related, it's going to be some fated and new self-assertion that you'll be doing there, all the while releasing something from kind of like your upbringing, your home environment, and so on and so forth. For Leo ascendant, Leo, the Libra Aries axis is basically your ninth and third house. So for you, and you also have to look where Mars is, okay, and where Venus is. For you, you are adopting a new worldview, or you might be taking on like a new degree, or academic study, or religion, or changing your religion, or changing your worldview, or there's a sudden travel that you travel to another country around the eclipse, around the eclipses, with the Libra being the third house. So you will be letting go, maybe some neighbors, some siblings move away, or letting go of them in some way, shape, or form. You're less around the neighborhood. Think about it. If you're traveling abroad, of course, you're less around the neighborhood. But this also means that beyond the fact that you're going to have new things there, it can also mean, let's say, that you wanted to take on such and such degree, but comes the eclipse and you change the entire subject of your degree, okay? Because it is eclipse related. This is where you make plans, but life happens and they have another thing to say about this. Okay, so these are fated events. This was important to remember around eclipses. Yes, it's not like Jupiter goes through your ninth house. You have opportunity to take on new studies. You also have to do something about it, and so on and so forth. I have in the ninth house perfected year, so in this year you will be tending to this topic, and you have more, let's say, choices of what to do about it. Ecliptic means that something will happen in that area in your life. Okay. It also means that some conflict will happen in your academic studies or during traveling, because Aries is Mars related. So we also have to keep that in mind. And if that happens around eclipses, you know that is just how you respond to this reality and not necessarily what the reality is. Ascendant Virgo. So Aries Libra. Aries Libra is in your second and eighth house. And for you, there's going to be some fated event around your trauma houses. Hopefully, it's not like new trauma or something like that, but it can definitely be something for you. Could be, for example, triggered by something, and now you have to seek help, whether it's counseling or the type of therapy that fits for you. Remember, Chiron is there too. Okay, so this is highly important. It's highly important for everybody, but for you, it's even more important because it might mean that if it's healing related, you need to comprise the healing yourself, and you have also difficulty to comprise the healing yourself. So hopefully, it's not like a trigger of a trauma. Although unfortunately, in this reality, it can very well be. And it means that the method that you're suggested with healing are not going to fully work for you and can sometimes even be traumatizing. So you might want to learn more about Aries in Aries or petition Aries or get to know Aries because those things are going to play a part, and learn more about Chiron. Other things, it can just mean that you have a change to your savings due to some fated events. Hopefully, it's not like a legal case. It can definitely be that something happened and you're scheduled to look at, or maybe you need to file documents, and then you're like, oh, I have not been seeing yield for all my investments, or I have not been investing. And you're going to change something up around this issue. If you have shared assets with someone, there might be conflict around this, and you're going to have to find your own way around counseling, whether it's your accountant, your psychologist, your psychiatrist. I don't think it's necessarily here, but it can be, if you like neurodivergent, or anybody supposed to give you an advice is not going to fully satisfy what you need. So you kind of have to it's going to be like Swiss cheese, the solutions. Then you're going to have to comprise it by yourself, but also are going to have challenge in doing it by yourself. That's just kind of like the spirit of the times. Another thing you might look into is like occult studies or stuff to do with magic, whether astrological or not. And kind of like more the energy, the hidden signs, they're going to play a role in your life in some way. And what you take on, what you're exposed to is very much fated for you to run into at this time. Okay. The Libra axis is your second house, so you're letting go of a certain way to make money, but also certain values, and also to the way you spend money. So for example, it can be as simple as, oh, I'm no longer making money from this skill or job due to some fated event, and now I have to go over my values and let go of some of the things that I was spending money on. Okay, cutting the income, then cutting also the expenses. But it can also mean that you retire from working like full time. If you're working, the money you're making from the skills that you have, or you're letting go of means of income, or in kind of like extreme cases could be letting go of some skill that you have for some reason. So maybe, I don't know, you're doing makeup and there's no makeup in your area, or you have moved to a certain place and like you can't really buy makeup, or you can't really make money now from putting makeup on people. So you need to change up, to switch up things, and usually it means you kind of like some old skill that you have might reappear, or you're just letting go of doing it all by yourself, like something like this, or a certain partnership to do with the way you make money, and values. And there can also be some foods that you cut from your menu. Okay, second house is also kind of like the grocery store, the supermarket. So there's some foods that by faith you cut from your table, and you kind of need to see what's the higher like plane of it, what's the higher motive of it. Or maybe you've been trying to, I don't know, get vegan or vegetarian, and then it kind of like, oh, there is some salmonella or some, virus in the meat, and you cannot eat meat. So you'd usually see the connection, but sometimes it's fated, and it's just kind of like, okay, that happens. Ascendant Libra. So for you, it's on the relational axis of the 7th and 1st. Relationships that appear in your life, okay, right now are fated. This encounter is fated. It doesn't mean that you need to continue on this encounter. For example, I have the ruler of my 7th in Aries, okay, and kind of one of the things that happened to me with Mercury was about to go retrograde. Was I kind of met a person that the meeting was very fated, but also the rejection of this person and me tackling his gaslighting like a lady. Believe it or not, I can act like a lady once in a blue moon. So that was also fated. And that's what I want to tell you, because you might have a sparkly new beginning that is absolutely meant for you, and so on and so forth. The other way around is that you are just fated to meet someone and discontinue this. So again, this is a Mars rule sign. So Severin ties play an important role in making, in asserting yourself and in making something new, striking on a new path. Chiron is also in your 7th house. So yeah, you might not expect something too much from this cycle of eclipses, and any relationship that forms now may have the co-presence of Chiron and Aries. So it doesn't mean like, hey, you're going to find the one. It just means that you're going to tackle these issues. You're going to assert yourself. You're going to assert your boundaries, or your partner is going to do so. Sometimes that means separations. But it really does depend on the rulers. It's more likely that you will have encounters rather than you will have separation. But it can be kind of like a no, 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 no. Oh, that one. And that one, whether it works out or not, might also be highly fated. So what you're letting go of actually is you. You're letting go of doing it all alone. You're letting go of doing it by yourself. Okay? You're letting go of... and there are also certain things around like your physical appearance. You might feel a bit less energetic with Ketu in your 1st house. So you want to be kind of watching out for this, and being compassionate with yourself. Granted that you're not going to die or anything like that, then it's basically about doing it less by yourself and more with a partner. That being said, there is a Chiron in the partnership. Okay, there is difficulty to have this running smoothly in your life, and there is Aries for millennia in the 7th, so the partner might have there might be issues of where you have not been inclusive, or issues of impulsivity that can develop into all kinds of things that you're dealing with. Okay, so this is not necessarily the easiest, but just so you'll know what's happening, what's popping in your chart. Ascendant Scorpio. So for you, this is Aries is the 6th house and Libra is the 12th house. So granted that it's not your sanity you're letting go of, you might be letting go of a mental ailment or a struggle or even a hidden enemy. Okay, it's kind of like this issue is resolved. This person is out of your life. They're not going to be affecting you anymore, and that is fated. Okay, you're letting go of something that this is fated, and the 6th house. It means you might get a new pet, you might, and again, you need to see where the rulers are. Okay, if you have like the rulers of the 6th and the 12th, you might be letting go of a job, or, some health issue can come up, but it might also mean, woo! 6th house is also labor, so labor and labor, okay? There's a new way you're working, and you might be also giving birth. You might be tending to your health, your physical health in a different way. Me competing with the planes. They weren't here the entire time. They weren't that much here. And then I started recording and they came back. I don't know what it says. I don't know how to delineate that. You can write it in the comments below if you have a reasoning. These are combat planes, of course. So you might be, and here is likely to be something, either you get, an accidental baby, because Mars rules accidents, and if you haven't been trying to conceive, then in some fated event you get pregnant. So this can happen with the 6th house. You give birth in a way that is fated. If you're planning for like a C-section, and then poof, like the water breaks, and until you get to the hospital, you're like, there's a baby in your hands. So not to scare anybody off. I'm not a mother myself, so I'm not sensitive to all the things that could be triggering. But this might be something like this. Or if it is your physical health, then you might, for example, start taking vitamins, start taking this, start taking that. And then, I don't know, there's some accident or something that you need to deal with. Or alternatively, there's some ailment pops up and now you have to take care of yourself in a new way. But with Chiron, you're going to have to comprise it yourself. And it's going to be trial and error as to how you do your physical health. It means that, for example, you go to a dietitian and they give you a prescription of food and you go by this prescription and then you feel all kind of side effects that are horrid. And kind of like, some ailment can be diagnosed by this that you didn't even know you have. So you will have to comprise your health by yourself during this cycle of eclipses, and for the while Chiron is in your 6th house. Another thing is pets. So I have had my eclipse pet come into my bedroom through the window and kind of like purring and stuff like that, and ever since then I have a cat. So that might be your kid, that something like this may happen to you. With the ram, like, I don't know what what animals. Granted, you're not going to have a ram bursting into your house and like, you're my owner now. But you might have kind of like an accidental pet, or you maybe want to save a pet or something like this. And it's going to be very pivotal. Okay, it's just, you might not have planned this, but it can happen. Or you're gonna get a new job. Okay, so a new job that you weren't necessarily planning for. Or you might be looking for a job in one field and then you get a job offer in a completely other field. If you have a business, the 6th house can be your employees. So there can be some really weird stuff with them. Some new employees coming in, or you're going to have to hire more employees, which means your business is getting bigger. But remember, the presence of both Aries and Chiron, you're really going to have to be inclusive, okay? So it's going to play out in weird ways for you. If that is the case, if it's like open enemies or enemies at work, then again, both hidden and you might be losing a hidden enemy, or again, unfortunately, a new enemy. Especially if you begin a new job, so there are new enemies, right? There are new people who are competing with you, while you are competing with yourself. So that can be the case. Ascendant Sagittarius. So for you, Aries is the 5th house and Libra is the 11th. And again, as with the 6th house with the Rahu, it means you may have accidental babies, because Mars rules accidents and 5th house rules babies, your first child. If it's your first child, it could be like a sudden thingy. And if it happens around eclipse, then, it's kind of like it's fated. Another thing is a hobby. You start a new hobby, and there's just something that is sudden about this, or something you weren't expecting. You kind of like start a new interest that comes into your life, or there is some sort of a romance. With the romance, again, like I said, to Libra ascendant, there is the co-presence of Aries and of Chiron. Okay, it means you might be dating someone who is marginalized and can't really reconcile this in a way or the advice you're going to get about relationships is not going to be fully fitting. So you want to you want to kind of take it as take it in a stride as much as you can. Hopefully it's not like a really lethal conflict or anything like that, but it just means that to some extent your romance, your attractions are going to be highly fated. You want to be cautious of behavior that is narcissistic towards you, again, without judging anyone. Okay, Aries is simply that which was marginalized in society. So when they try to connect, it's difficult. So it's not about tagging anyone. It's more about like being aware that that you might have a little bit of a Trojan horse for a romantic partner. And while that can simply mean you're dating someone who is marginalized but have a lot to offer and are a great, person, it can also mean that you're the target of this Trojan horse activity, and for some reason they kind of like want to take on you stuff that's not related to you. So this is where you want to be cautious. And the meetings again are fated. Okay, someone's gonna you might go to develop some new hobby and you meet someone there. It does depend on your natal chart. Okay, if it is, when other significations have to appear. So we said hobbies, we said, and also risk taking. There may be a risk that you will just have to take in your life. Okay, because this is the house of risks. So certain decisions that you have to make, where you're pushed into a situation, you have to make a decision that is risky, or come up with a third option if you're offered an ultimatum that's to do with risk. And the Libra, well, you're letting go of certain social circles, or certain agendas, or certain type of activism, certain partnerships that were related to your dreams and goals. Even you're letting go of old dreams. You're updating your vision, but now it's more like the stage where you're letting go of something. Okay, think about the times where in COVID people used to go to conferences and then you had to do conference at Zoom, and now it's even considered more inclusive to do a conference that is also Zoom and personal. So if there's no possibility to do also Zoom, it is considered not inclusive. Okay, it's like we should have done that a million years ago, but now when everybody can do Zoom conference, then we know we must have this also accessible to people, granted that we have the means to have a computer there, which we usually do if we have in a conference. So the old way you did conferences, the old ways you did crowdfunding, the old way you did activism, you have to toss it away, and that will probably yield create a gap for something else to be created there. For Capricorn ascendants, so for you, Aries is the 4th house and Libra is the 10th house. You're one of the people that are going to maybe relocate, okay? And for you, it might happen in such a way where you're thinking like you were planning to relocate, you were needing to relocate, and then something fated happens. Hopefully not a war and conflict or something like that, but or a genocide. But for you, it can be that you're relocating, you're changing the house, but this can be some accident around the house. Something is broken in the house, and now you must fix it, and you can't ignore it anymore. So this could have been building up, and you'll see that you might find it difficult to make the changes or to gather the energy to make the changes. But then the eclipses come, and they kind of, it's both they kind of force it on you, but you could actually get a boost of energy that will allow you to finally make this change. Plus something gets broken or just some accident happens. And you really need to do something to change something up around the house. Okay, if it is like an accident, you're usually going to renovate the house entirely different. And with Aries and Chiron, it can be that you need your house to be more inclusive. Okay, so you want to be thinking about living on a house with a yard, especially for you, a house with a yard, perhaps in a new neighborhood. Place to, if you want to take out like the conflict zone from Aries, then what we want to bring in is basically some new neighborhood, some new place that will have its own difficulties and conflicts, but we bring the innovation and the inclusivity. So you're gonna be needing to realize what do you need to be more inclusive about in your house. Okay, with Chiron and Aries, this might be to do with neurodivergence, or alternatively, that the structure of your house need to be more inclusive. So that can be to do even with disability, okay, maybe on a neurological base, that you or somebody in the home deals with, and now you just have to change up the structure of the house to be inclusive of this person, or else you will have accidents that will force you to do so. Okay, it's usually that way when people are sick or something like this. So yeah, when it comes to the 10th house, you're letting go of a certain position, we're letting go of certain image. You could be also letting go of the way people think about you, kind of like being worried about that or caring about that way more than you should. But there's also, if you had a certain image in the eyes, in the public eye, you're letting go of that for now. And this is fated. It can simply mean, for example, that let's say you're a publicity person or a lawyer or something like this, and you are taking care of your image. Something happens in the home, your attention spans someplace else. You're not marketing yourself as you would normally do. And then, like, there are many other people doing many other dramatic things, and you just, you're far from the eye and far from the heart of people, and that can be a crisis that is fated and kind of forces you to think differently about image, or how much investing have I done into something that's more frail, that can disappear. Or maybe if you had like a high position, you could get a demotion because you had to tend to your house, or had to be inclusive in your house, and then they're like, well, we can't hold you in this position. And you can see how frail was the 10th house for you, and kind of like change your own perception around this, okay, as well. For Aquarius ascendant, so for you, Aries is the third house and Libra is the ninth house. If you have been living abroad or like studying a degree abroad, you might be more around the neighborhood. Ooh. Oh my. There's just nothing when these planes, like, my God. Okay, so for you, you could be graduating and you could be canceling out a travel plan. And again, if you have Mars in the ninth natal leader, it's going to appear some, different form of fashion. But other than that, some worldview, you're letting go of some worldview that you have. And you're more, something's going to force you to deal more with your neighbors and your siblings. There can be even a conflict that you need to tend to. Or be more inclusive about. Whatever we're dealing with, for everyone, whatever we're dealing with in the Aries house, inclusivity is the word. Okay? You need to be more inclusive of yourself in the situations with the siblings and so on. That can be also your transportation. So this is really the time to make sure you're like, it's not like your car or something, because there can be like an accident around this. So this is the best time to kind of make sure that you do your own thing, because there's something like there's just something that's forcing you to be more inclusive around the way you travel from place to place, or your transportation. You might be forced to get a driving license or forced to change up your vehicle, or it's something in the neighborhood. Okay, it might have to be, maybe some refugees are moving in and they're like from all kinds of from all walks of life. You just have to be more inclusive, or they have to be more inclusive. I hope it doesn't appear as anti-Semitism to you, because Aries had tended to appear that, unfortunately. So hopefully it's not something like this that you are dealing with, or new conflict that appears that is fated. But you always want to look, it's like, what's beyond this? What's kind of like the greater meaning here? And comprise it to yourself. Another thing, third house is communication. If you have in a vlog or a blog or something, so you might change up the topic. I know, for example, a person that I was working for abroad, and they had sudden like a breakup, changed up housing, and the war, and many things happened, and then they made a new workshop, okay, about choosing life. So it can be something like that to you as well, okay. Or you're moving from writing like books to writing a vlog, if that is kind of like what you do for a living. That's pretty much the options that I see. And Ascendant Pisces, last but not least. So this is your second and eighth house, with Aries being your second. Now, one of the ways in which this is difficult is that you're both letting go of a certain support that you have had at the Libra, or letting go of debt as well. So if you have debt, then it means you might be letting go of debt. But if you have like a grant or something like this, it might mean that you're learning to not have it, might not be there in the future. Okay. But when it comes to your second house, to your income house, yes, there will be some fated new income, but it unfortunately can be to do around something to do with inclusivity, and something to do with like an accident, or around your being neurodivergent. There's a Chiron there, okay? You can't, it's not about your being entrepreneurial and suddenly making wealth. If Chiron was not there, ooh, oh lordy. Okay, if Chiron was not there, I would have said, okay, this is your time. You might be opening up a business. You might be becoming independent. Da, 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 da. Because Chiron is there, even if you do something around health or something like this, you might have a certain disability related to your ability to making money by yourself. And that means that the income that is coming, you are doing it by yourself, but it is in a very weird way. And I'm not sure like how. Um, and so this is where there you need to you're called to reinvent yourself, but there is a wound around this. It's depending on where Mars is for you, what's in there. You might need to kind of think about resources rather than money, and you might kind of like it might mean you fight um, for what's yours in a sense, okay? But there is also a problem to do that. Here's just something not easy, I have to say, around your income. But there's also new expenses that come in right now. So this is a bit of a crisis for you. Um, and the dealing with this crisis, it means tending to the shadow side of Aries, which is ableism, okay? Because Aries is very innovative, but there is some issue with ableism that can appear and can arise. And so now you are dealing with being on the side that can absolutely not make it by themselves yet again. Okay. So this is a difficult moment for you. And whatever you have there, okay, it means that even if like your family or your partner or your government or somebody supported you and kind of like through them you made money, there's a Chiron wound around this too. So it can cause a tremendous amount of conflict and trouble um, to your life, and that can be an issue you're tackling for quite some time. Because of Aries, you might end up doing something really extreme to simply like get food or make an income. And it can be shocking to in Aries, it can be shocking to the entire humanity what you will do when you're running into this situation. Shocking in like if you're one of the people that for whom it is Eclipse chosen to do such shocking things, this will be something that the entire humanity will need to deal with. Simply put, I'm not being PC around this. You're called in to make money, but there's a wound around how you make money, and it's the wound of ableism. And with Aries, you have to be inclusive around like your scale, or just something that you need to be inclusive around how you make your money, but also because there's a Chiron wound there. It can be incredibly shocking to humanity what you will do when you just need food, for example. Okay. Ascendant Aries. So Ascendant Aries, Rahu is in your first house, Ketu in your seventh. So for you, it is more about being yourself. It can be being by yourself, but just being yourself. And something fated happens around you being you. Okay? However you define yourself, that is about to change dramatically. and some sort of a marginalized identity becomes involved with that in a fated way. Okay, so it could be something like, there's some, in some cases there was some accident and now disability comes in, or you're diagnosed as neurodivergent. Okay, and it pertains to who you are and to your life path in the world. You also need to see where your Mars is. There is a wound around being you right now for some reason. Okay, for example, you could be a Jewish person and now suffering with anti-Semitism, and now it's difficult for you to be a Jewish, or maybe you need to go undercover, but there's a difficulty to do that. So that can be one of these places. Another thing can have to do with like accident or neurodivergence. Yes, or maybe some sexuality like LGBTQ. Okay, maybe you're a Palestinian queer, and like, it's difficult to break the news to the world who says queers for Palestine, that you're basically going to be literally in life risk in that Palestine that they're preaching for. And you might not be able to speak or to be yourself. So again, you are also one of the people that could end up shocking humanity with what you have to do to simply be. Okay, and there is a wound also around being able to do that. Okay, because of Chiron. So both for you and for Pisces ascendant, here's just a wound of dealing with that. Can be something PTSD related as well, unfortunately, more PTSD related, something like that. There's an abundance of frustration here that Aries only knows one way of letting out, and that's creating a Trojan war. So yeah, not so excited as a Pisces ascendant to hear this, but also not so excited for the Aries ascendants out there. Taurus ascendant. Taurus ascendant, Libra is your 6th house, and Aries is your 12th house. So there's a new way you're undermining yourself. Congratulations. No, but there are certain types of, for example, if you're trying to just kind of like take responsibility over your mental health, do not expect the psychiatrist, the shaman, the healer, the guru in your retreat, or wherever you go to be satisfied, to give you satisfactory treatment. Not always necessarily because of who they are. It's simply that with Chiron, you need to comprise this yourself. From the diagnosis of what is going on to how to treat it. You need to be doing it all by yourself. And it's difficult. There's also the difficulty to do so. And Rao is calling for you to tend to this. It's going to be a fated event where you can no longer ignore a certain issue. And that issue, you might want to consider the places where you could not be yourself had affected your mental ailment. Okay? You could not be you, and thus that had affected your mental ailment. There's some part of you that was not included, both by the merit of Chiron, by the merit of Aries, or there's some part of your identity that is marginalized, it's unseen, and you find it difficult to express, and that is affecting your mental health. So first of all, just knowing that can be useful. And the events around this are going to be fated. So let's say you decided to take a retreat and you booked in a retreat, then you find out your guru is, I don't know, supporting different type of people, or decided they don't want to give you service because you're this of that nationality or sexual orientation or all that, crap, sorry. because eventually, when we die, there's no flags, no sexual identity, no bloodline, none of that. It's just kind of like, when we cross over, then we're part of divinity. Yes, we have ancestors and so on. Yes, absolutely. But you know what I mean. So that's it. This is the cycle of eclipses. And again, if you have one takeaway from this episode, is knowing where here is the axis where you make plans, but life have other plans. And that's the meaning of eclipses. So thank you for watching.